Then strain energy, because if there is misfit in the volume misfit can come from the, if it is an incoherent precipitate, misfit can come from volumetric misfit, delta V over V. And if it is a coherent interface, then little bit mismatch in the lattice parameter over the interface, it will try to strain both matrix and the precipitate will try to strain its along the interface. It will try to strain the lattice to give you a lattice misfit strain. So one is misfit strain coming from lattice this registry, another is from volume misfit. Now there are two things. One is your surface energy multiplied by the area, so total surface energy. Another is your strain energy multiplied by the volume. These two things to be minimized along with your delta GB, whatever is that, V delta GB. So these two are giving positive things which should be minimized, and your shape depends on the particle shape, depends on minimization of these and also of this. If your misfit strain if delta GS is negligible, if your misfit strain is negligible, then only thing that determines the shape of the precipitate is the surface energy minimization. If it is a coherent precipitate meaning a precipitate whose all sides are bounded by coherent interface, means all sides are bounded by coherent interface. It's so coherent that every side is coherent. All the boundaries are coherent. In that case, usually the minimum surface energy will be given by, although the, do you know about Wolf plot and gamma plot, Wolf theorem, gamma plot? No? Then read Porter Sterling book, chapter 3. Little bit is given there, but you can read other, you can get some exposure of that. So that will give you the precipitate shape based on gamma plot. That is the how different, depending on the anisotropy of the interfacial energy. Anisotropy meaning different plane will have different interfacial energy. So if it is a coherent precipitate, so first let us consider our strain is negligible. We are talking about if it is solid state transformation, if strain is still strain is negligible in comparison to your interfacial energy, then if it is coherent, then it will be spherical. If it is incoherent, then it will be spherical. That will minimize this. If it is partly coherent, precipitate meaning when a precipitate, so many a times precipitate maintains an orientation relationship with the matrix, but matrix and precipitate has very different crystal structure. In that case, only one of the planes will maintain a close relation with the matrix. Only one of the planes of the precipitate will maintain a good matching with one of the planes of the matrix. In that case, that plane, that interface will be of good matching and that will be of coherent type, but other interfaces will be incoherent. So that is partly coherent. So one of the interface is coherent, other interface is incoherent, and usually the particle will try to have that coherent interface with low energy to be, it wants to maximize that. So it will be a broad face of that and the edges will be of incoherent type. So in that case this will be disk shape, where the thickness of the, so this thickness and the diameter, this ratio will be given by the coherent interfacial energy divided by incoherent interfacial energy. So it is much less. So this ratio will be thickness by diameter ratio of this disk shape. So these shapes will come when only this is most important, this is not important. For coherent it will be spherical, for incoherent spherical, for partly coherent it is this. If strain energy comes into picture,
sir, for incoherent strain energy is more, so then the shape should be this shape. For incoherent,
if for incoherent,
strain energy is more.
no, we are ignoring strain energy. For the case where we are ignoring strain negligible. So I just said where interfacial energy is the main important part, where strain energy is negligible. Now if we consider strain, what will be the case? That's what we will discuss now. So if you consider strain, then the coherent precipitate, the delta, the misfit, can you see this side if I write? Shivam, sorry, what? Even here?
Yes.
Okay. So where strain energy is important, then we started with incoherent yesterday. Let me talk about incoherent first then. Incoherent. What was the strain energy that I wrote yesterday? Two-thirds? Do you remember? Do you have that? Function of C over A. So here I have written delta GS. Let us give some other term instead of delta GS per unit volume, say V, multiplied by V. Okay, so this V multiplied by delta GS per unit volume is your delta GS. If that is the case, then delta GS should be multiplied by V. So this part is the what delta GS per unit volume of the precipitate that we wrote yesterday. So it is proportional to, this is the shear modulus of the matrix, this is the volume misfit, square of volume misfit and some shape factor, and we drew that F C over A, here C over A, if it is 0 and tends to 0, then it is a linear and equal to 3/4 pi. What did I write?
C by A.
V4 pi C over A, and if it is 1, then this value becomes 1, and if it is very high, infinity somewhere here, then this value is somewhere around 0.75. So these three values we know, and to make it a continuous function, it will be like this shape. This is a needle shape, this is a sphere, this is a disc. So strain energy is maximum for sphere, but interfacial energy is lowest for sphere. So balance between those two will give you an oblate spheroid with C by A ratio somewhere in between. So it will be an oblate spheroid near to disc separate, and we wrote down the volume of the oblate spheroid, and volume and area we wrote. So your delta G will be given by the free energy formation of an embryo or an oblate spheroid will be given by your volume is 4/3 pi a square C multiplied by your delta GV. This delta GV is the volumetric free energy change, thermodynamic free energy change, plus your that one 2/3 of mu delta square FC over L plus area we wrote pi a square, so gamma multiplied by pi a square within bracket 2 plus C square over A square E ln 1 plus E divided by 1 minus E. So this is your volume, and this is your area of an oblate spheroid, where E is given by square root of 1 minus C square over A square of an oblate spheroid. C is your polar radius, A is your equilateral radius, and so delta G represents a surface in 4-dimensional space, the independent variables being A, so delta G is function of A, C and Xn, because Xn will come into here. If it is a two-component system, Xn will come here. So you have to, so it's a surface, the saddle point will give you your delta G star for nucleation. So saddle point can be obtained by taking all these partial derivatives equal to 0 simultaneously will give you the saddle point, and if you do that, what you will find, so if you do those differentiation, assume the composition of the alloy and the nucleus to be constant, then you will get these, that C of the critical size oblate spheroid nucleus, say C star, or what should I write? Critical or C star, what should I write? C star. C star is equal to minus 2 gamma over delta GV. A star you will get 2 pi mu delta square gamma over delta GV square, and your delta G star, that is the saddle point, you will get 8/3 pi cube mu square delta to the power 4 gamma cube over delta GV to the power 4. So you note that what is the mu? Mu was the shear modulus of the matrix or the stiffness. As it increases, as the shear or as the stiffness of the matrix increases, your critical size nucleus A equilateral